You've landed on planet 412 once again. I'm your host, Matt N. And I am here to lead you guys through this paranormal, supernatural, cryptid infested world that we live on, and hopefully give you a little bit to open your mind as you go through your normal life. Today is a very exciting day for me. I'm a big fan of a show called These Woods Are Haunted, which I am positive the majority of everybody watching here has at least heard of it before. One of the stories, or the way I like to put it, is experiences, because I believe this is true, that has really resonated with me and spoken to me so much so that I reached out to these two gentlemen, is the Thibodaux brothers. From the episode where there were three of them, they went to a lake island about 2.5, 3 hours from their cabin. And the two brothers and a friend of theirs who won't be here tonight had an experience that changed their life forever, where they were, for all intents and purposes, almost killed by two, more likely more than two, but they only saw two dogmen. And like me, the walls of reality shattered, and it has absolutely changed their lives. And I am very honored that Buster and Larry Thibodaux are here today, and we're going to bring them in right now. As I was leading up to at the beginning there, it's not going to be, a surprise for anybody. They're not going to, most of them look and say, oh, who are these guys? You guys know, after being on These Woods Are Haunted, that you're very familiar to millions of people. So, what I wanted to do is, again, first, thank you for just coming. It's an honor.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having us on, letting us tell our story here. All right, Larry Thibodaux from Dallas, Texas. Born and raised in Texas all my life. And a big hunter, big outdoorsman. And that's kind of what led us to this experience. Just being outdoors and having all the experiences that you do outdoors. And sometimes you kind of come across different things that most people do that aren't there.
My name is Buster Thibodaux. My bio is obviously similar to my brother's. Grew up in Dallas. I live here in Forestburg, Texas. My wife, 4 kids. Enjoy the same thing, the outdoors, hunting and fishing. Like I said, it's real similar to Larry's.
We have a house on Lake Texoma. Lake Texoma is I think one of the largest lakes in Texas, in North Texas, close to Oklahoma. Actually, half the lake borders kind of the Oklahoma and Texas border the lake, or split the lake. So we do a lot of hunting, a lot of fishing, and up there at Texoma. And one of the things we do is duck hunting. That's how kind of this whole thing started. So we found this particular area on the lake by duck hunting. Okay, we
were setting jugs that night, though.
Well, when we found it, but how we originally found the place.
Oh, okay, yeah.
How we found it was duck hunting. So we were trying to go. We found a place that we'd go duck hunt where no one was, where no one would be. And the reason I say this, I'll kind of tell you later. But we traveled up, because the lake, there's so many people out there that like to duck hunt and go out there, and it gets there's so much traffic out there, a lot of people in the way. And so we decided, well, let's just head up one of these creeks. And so we head up a creek, and then we discovered, and later, a couple weeks later, as we're going, we're like, this is a pretty good place to fish. So you fast forward about 6, 8 months in time. We're like, let's go set some catfish jugs out there, on our duck place. And so we're going out there and setting some jugs out, and that was the night. So we're out there, and so the lake has a bunch of tributaries and a bunch of creeks. And this particular area that we're talking about is, I won't name the name, but anybody that's listening will probably know it's kind of a refuge area. And they kind of protect it. It's very protected in that area. And it's protected for waterfowl and for animals, for deer and things like that. But there's areas around there that you can go, that anybody can go to. Some places are harder to get to. Okay, we chose the places that were harder to get to for a couple of reasons, because no one goes there. It's a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the butt when you get there in the morning. There's 10 people there. So one way to negate that is just go a little further and a little deeper into the woods. And so that's what we did. And we've been doing it for a while. And so this particular day, we're like, okay, let's head out there. The girls are at camp, kind of want to get away. And it was a holiday weekend. And we decided, let's go out there and let's set some jugs out in the cove. We don't set them up in the creek because it's just, it gets a little shallow. So we set them out in the cove, and then we went back into the creek. We were going to camp out there, just kind of chill out, make a campfire. No one's back there. We're never bothered, and and just kind of just chill out. And that's when kind of everything started to happen. So we're getting late, starting to build a fire, and then Buster, if you kind of want to. Buster, he's the one that very first kind of started seeing what was happening.
Yeah, we were going up in the boat. I think we were kind of drifting the banks looking for logs or something like that, because I remember we wanted to make a big bonfire. And then we started hearing like cracking or basically something just walking at first. And of course, you're in the woods. You're going to hear something, whether it's a deer or any other, some kind of animal. And then because we had the spotlight, and it was connected obviously to the battery, and we were shining in the bank. And then we started hearing like a loud cracking sound, like just bags of bones just being crushed. And, we kept scanning the deal. And then that's when we saw Larry, my brother, he was like, "What's that over there?" And we looked, and there was these big, just yellow eyes. And it's like, I don't know if light was, I don't know. It's hard to explain that. The eyes were I remember they were just so yellow. And then we knew it wasn't a bear or anything like that. We just kept saying, "What the hell is that? And then that's when we heard like air being, just shot out, just expelled, kind of like the sound of like a deer will make when it spots you, but it was 10 times louder. And then we heard that cracking sound again, and then we saw something stand up that had to have been 9-10 foot tall. A dog, wolf type creature, bipedal, that stood on 2 feet. I can still remember the pointed ears, the long arms. I remember seeing the claws, just like I said, 9-10 feet. It was hairy all around on where the stomach was. It was like patches of hair was missing, and the skin was like black, almost like looked like a texture of, I don't know, a monkey or like a raccoon's hand, but you could definitely see like defined muscles in the stomach. And we saw that, and well, before that, and then we were trying to get the thing started. That's when we got scared, started freaking out. A giant boulder comes, which we came back, and I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll tell that in a second. But something crashed in the lake. It sounded like an F-350 just jumping a ramp, just barreling down into the water. Made a huge splash. So we're trying to get it started so we can get out of there. Anyway, long story. It took us the engine out. It was an older outboard engine. We're trying to get that started. When we finally do, we start to take off, and during this whole time, I'm like, man, whatever this thing is, it's it can get us at any time, and I still don't know why it didn't today. But so we start taking off, and then that's when trees. He had to have, or it, whatever, had to have knocked trees over running at us, because I just remember the sound of just like, when you chop a tree and you can like hear it just like fall, that sound it makes. It was just right after the other. And here's something that on the show, we told them this. I don't know why they didn't put it on while we was, going out of the river from one side of the bank to the other. How far do you think that is, Bo? Like 20 yards, 25?
About 30, easy.
Yeah. It was, I don't know if it was flying, but it was either flying or it was a really, really, really big, long jump.
Jumping.
Yeah, like 20 to 25, just and fast too.
Yeah, it's jumping.
And the thing is, and it would be like right here, and then we would be, it would jump, and then we would see it, we would be passing it, and it would be like parallel with it. And then all of a sudden we would hear it. I mean, it'd be gone, then it'd be up, another 10, 15 yards, just so fast. The speed of it was just unreal.
Hey, Buster, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
So I know from what we saw from the show itself, you guys said that there were two. Do you think that one that you're referring to right now was the same one, or do you think it was a different one?
So,
and Larry, please.
First, this is something we've talked about too, because, when, you obviously get asked all the time, how big was it? How big was it? And I'm like, man, it was like 9-10 feet. And then, later on when you're thinking about it, you're like, I remember I saw one, but at that time it didn't seem 10 feet. Was it like hunched down? Was it crunched down? And then we got to talking. I mean, because where he said he would see one and where I would see one, we think it was two of them. We feel pretty confident there was two. Maybe it's baby. Maybe that's why it threw that big boulder at us and knocked those trees down, running at us to get us out of the way.
Yeah, I think if you don't mind, I think on that point, and a couple of good things Buster brought up, a couple of big important things was, first off, I think Buster made note of the eyes. That was a kind of a big deal. And that the first thing that kind of alerted all of us to what the hell we were even looking at. Okay. So when we're struggling with these lights, trying to figure out, they're trying to point them because there was something obvious to us that was foreign to what we were hearing. Buster and I've been in the woods. We're in the woods a lot. We're outdoorsmen, and so was Jason and Danny at this time. Or Jason. Danny we called him Danny before, but the height is, but so is Jason. But so we, as the light shining, we're like trying to find this. What is this noise? And then those eyes that Buster just talked about. It's incredible. And I listened to yours, Matt. We were talking about the eyes when you saw this thing. You talked about there being yellow and just bright. I don't know. We only saw it in the light, but what we do, and Buster can probably agree with this, that was the color, the brightness, the yellow. That's all you saw. And I kind of talked about it before. We're trained to look for the eyes as we scan the lights. That's all, when you're night raccoon hunting or anything, looking for game out, you look for eyes, and it's like nothing you've ever seen before. It's just it was so striking, and that was the first thing. And then, like you said, with the rock that came through, that's when we were leaving, right? Yeah, we were leaving. As we were leaving, that's when as we were heading out, that's when that rock came down. We found out later it was a rock, but just the most unreal, the noise of this thing, and just the power of this thing. This thing had to be, and I'll tell you, we'll get into this later, but now we went back and found the rock. We know what it was, but it's just like, how did this happen? And then on to the thing where, was there more than one? We, without a doubt, we know there was two. So when he shined the light back, and our last glimpse, this is our last glimpse of it. When we shined the light back, there was one, and was it crouched down? Was it was it a small one? Was it crouched down? I don't know, but kind of what we've learned and kind of seen, which we'll share later, maybe, or in another episode, but what we've learned is, I'm not sure if these things are, if they're out to hurt us. I think they could have hurt us with that rock. There's no way how close he was or she was. There's no way that they could not have hurt us with that rock. I think they were maybe trying to protect something. And I think from what we saw, which we've agreed on, my brother and I and Jason, I think it could have been probably just a young one. We think. And I think he was just trying to, like any mother of any animal would, a human or an animal, I think they were trying to protect this one. And so that's when you talk about the second pair of eyes we saw. We think it was probably a younger one. It was crouched down and she was protecting it. And I think she was just protecting her territory or his territory, her territory, and their family, because no one goes to this area. And we've gone further into this area than there's just no reason for anybody to go up there. It's just too hard. It's just too hard. And we just decided that day to go up there. We've been back probably less than a dozen times since then, because it's just too hard to do. And so I just think it's an area, and we keep going back. We keep talking about it. And the only thing that makes sense is this was an offspring, or this was a child, or whatever you want to call it. This was a pup, or whatever the name is for this. We believe that's what it was. And it was,
I didn't want to interrupt you. I wanted to, before I forgot about this. So Buster had actually mentioned about the color. So do you guys agree 100% on, all the color and the features, or did either of you see something after you had went back to that you noticed, maybe, Buster, that Larry, you didn't, and vice versa?
Yeah, I remember, and of course, this could have been the way at first, like when the light first hit this animal. At first I saw red, and then it transitioned into a just a bright yellow. And we were close to that. It was how, like 20, I'm not good at telling or saying, hey, it was 25 yards, 40 yards, anything like that. It was close enough that when we was shining the light on it, I can still remember seeing where the ears were just so like pointed, like almost like what's that one dog, a Doberman, a Pinscher? That's how the ears looked. And we were close enough that I could see, like, I remember on one of its ears, I could see like fine hair coming out. And it's not like we stayed there and looked at it for 5 minutes. I mean, it was, I don't know what, like 10, 15 seconds at the max that we looked at it. Because first, when you see something like that, the first thing that happens is your brain is trying to comprehend what you're seeing, and no one's talking. So, 4 or 5 seconds go by, and then you finally realize you're looking at something that it's not supposed to be real, something that's not supposed to exist.
That's a whole nother, that you can talk, and Matt, you can talk an entire show about that, whether, when you see something for 15, 20, 30 seconds, you can talk an entire show about those 15 to 20, 30 seconds, because when you're seeing that, not only think this is it, I'm done, your entire life flashes in front of you, and then a lifetime occurs during that 15 to 20 seconds. It
does. And I wanted to, obviously I have a ton of questions for you guys. So
please.
Buster, I'm watching you like wipe your face, and I don't know if you've seen any of my interviews, but one of the things that happens to me because I go back every time, just like the two of you, I'll sweat. Yeah. I'll start getting like, that anxiety in my chest, the hairs. Are you nervous from talking about this?
Yeah, I've probably been going to, seeing a therapist and counseling for over a year now because of this. I've had, I wake up at least 3 times a week, just screaming. I mean, it's scary. It's really affected and changed my life. It's hard for me to, and we'll get to this later, but we find, when we do go back to, and we've seen some things that we'll tell you if we have enough time, but things that are just really, really crazy, man. Yeah. It was like
I do
2018.
recall now you saying that it was the 4th of July, which is wild.
Yeah, because our sons were little. They were like in the 6th or 7th grade.
Yeah.
So it was July 4th, 2018, you said?
It was the year before COVID, so that was 18, right?
We were out there and around that general spot, and it was getting to be kind of close to dark. Probably about it was at dusk, probably about an hour before dark. I mean, the sun was going down, and we were looking for prints or just trying to see if we could see something out of the ordinary. And we started hearing that sound again, that of air being shot out. And then we heard that, and we looked at each other because that's the only time we heard that sound before, is when it happened to us the first time. So we kind of really didn't, move towards it at first. And then we started hearing like whining and whelping, like a dog crying, multiple dogs crying. And we're like, what is that? It sounds like it's how it's coming. It sounds weird. So we started walking towards it, and it was, the closer we got, the louder and louder it was. And we came upon, it was 4 coyotes, and their bottom jaw right here, it was just ripped off, man. And it was hanging between a crook or a V of this tree.
You set him in the Y of the tree.
Yeah, the Y of a tree, and blood was. I remember one of the eyes was still open. Blood was dripping down. There was 4 of them. They were just like, I don't see how they haven't died yet. So they were just crying and yelping.
Did you guys finish it for them, or you didn't have it?
Well, there's only so we have photos. This is something else we have photos of. So we have photos of this, and this is something that's like, what do you do with these photos? Who do you give? You can't give these to anybody. So now we've been, I know, but you got to think about this. We've been approached by so many people.
Right.
Like, it's just for ill gang. It just.
Yeah, and that's Matt. No, the only reason I'm doing, and I was telling Bubba, the only reason I'm doing the deal with you, I talk, I've listened to lots of other people.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Remember, I kept telling you, I'll get my brother. I'll get my brother. He didn't want to.
Yeah.
He didn't want to. So I finally.
I understand.
That's why it took me so long to do it, to get it done.
It's because I hear all these other these podcasters and stuff like that, and a lot of them, I just feel like they just want clicks, so they can get advertisements, which is fine. You got to make money. But when he told me the story that you had, the sighting that you saw, I'm like, man, there's so many, because there were so many similarities. Because sometimes when you're watching them on TV, it's the same old thing. You hear people say, we was walking in the woods, and all of a sudden it just got real quiet. The hair on your back of your neck stood up. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't know. I'd still heard the bullfrogs, and it was the hair on my, before it happened. I didn't, it just happened all of a sudden. But anyway, the story he told me of the sighting you had, there were so many similarities in it. And I'm like, yeah, I think this guy's seen it too. We can talk to him about it.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, and you could imagine, obviously, even though my channel's 3 months old, I've been watching this stuff my whole life because specifically of what occurred to me when I was young with my friends. And I've seen a lot of other experiences on These Woods Are Haunted or other shows. And, I've reached out to a couple people, but I have never meant to purposely try as hard as I could to get in touch with anyone more than you guys, because of the exact same thing you just said, Buster. The similarities, Larry, you and I have talked about this. When you feel, the number one, something that's resonated with me with both of you is, and I watched your interview on These Woods Are Haunted earlier today, and when you talk about, that moment when you feel like you 100% believe this is your moment, you're going to die. that's when I knew, you know what, I have to try and get in touch with these guys. So, you know, thank you so much for doing
You're
this.
welcome.
And, you know, this is touching me in personal part. You know, I've been very candid about, you know, I still have issues to this day from what happened. I get people messaging me and, oh, I wish I could have this happen to.
Oh, you
No,
don't.
no,
You don't.
you don't.
You know, it's a weird experience. I talked about how it, you know, it affects me, and it's still, you know, when I talk about it, you know, I can feel some of those feelings come back and everything, and how it's really affected me. But it's weird because at the same time, we've been back. It's something that draws you back to see it again, because it's weird. And then, like, when you're just, I remember I was out with my family the other day. I took my son to the park, and I remember I was swinging him, and it just popped in my mind again. I mean, it was, you know, it was in the middle of the day. I was out in a park where lots of people was, and I remember I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I know that thing's out there. I wonder where it's at this exact second, and what's it doing?
Yep.
What's it eating?
Me too.
Exactly.
You
That's
know?
exactly what I think about all the
You
time.
guys had children, you know, before obviously I was 14, so that didn't go through my head when you guys thought about, and I would like both of you to touch on this. Now, you thought about that moment that these things are coming, and before I go there, let me backtrack real quick. You had mentioned real quick, you know, the experience itself wasn't that long from start to finish. From start to where you notice the very first strange things start to occur till you were farther away and you knew you were going to live. How long did that event occur?
Well, I'll say I think both agree with this. We say it's short, but relatively speaking, when you talk about 2 or 3 minutes, it's a lifetime. It's an eternity. And so, by
Yeah,
the time,
because the boat ride out of there when it was jumping across the bank. I mean, how long did that take?
so well, if we start at the beginning, right when let's start from like how long did the whole thing take? Right when we're at the very beginning, while we were sitting there, and when we first started to hear something behind us, and Jay started getting kind of freaked out, and we started walking to the boat, and when we started getting the boat, so from that point, we talked from that point, okay, and then that was about, so I mean, working with the light, trying to figure as we're kind of drifting out in the water. Remember when he was pushing, he was out and he jumped in the boat, and we tried to help him get in the boat. From that point, and then I'm starting trying to shine the light. That lasted for 30 seconds, easy, 45 seconds, and then time we hit the light, that was our 2 minutes. So I think this whole thing, so that stood in front of us. That was there before he jumped in the water, before he jumped across the bank. When it went across the bank, that's a minute and a half, 2 minutes. So this wasn't quick. It's quick, but it's 60, 90 seconds more. I mean, minute and a half, 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes long. This was and it seemed like eternity. And that when you're doing that, that eternity, when you have to feel like you said a while ago, Matt, when you felt it, when you feel like you're going to die for 90 seconds to whatever it is, that's a long time to realize. And you know, Matt, the stuff that goes through your head. I can tell you're feeling it right now. I can tell you think about, what's my family going to do?
Yep.
Who's going to be at my funeral? You think about all this stuff. You stop thinking about what's going to happen to you, and you start thinking about what's everybody else going to do. They're at the, I mean, and then on the ride, once we got out and we knew we were safe, the whole time you're thinking, God, it's amazing what you think about how human mind works, and how it can work so quickly, and you think everything flashes, and it's so true, and no one believes it until you think and you know that at that moment you're probably going to die. And we thought we were going to die.
You thought about, again, you know, like I had said, I was 14, obviously, the thought of a child didn't creep in. What did that do to you, thinking about your kid? Buster, I remember you saying, you know, I'm a dad. You know, that, like, for me, I have a daughter, and I mean, just like that makes my chest tighten up. How did that, you know, make you feel, obviously, real quick thinking of that? And then how has that affected you through the years, each of you, knowing, that those are out there. You're a parent. Have you ever addressed it with your kids? I'll let you address it.
Buster, go first.
Yeah, while we were encountering and while it was happening, those thoughts did go through my head. I'm a dad. I don't want to die. It's just an instantaneously thought. You really don't start thinking about it until the next day, until things calm down, and then you're really like, man, that could have been bad. I mean, what if we died and something happened to our bodies and they never found us, and our families would have had questions our entire life, like what happened to them?
Because they had no idea where we were.
Yeah, and what really would have happened to us, they never even would have, something like that never even would have crossed their minds. I mean, you start thinking about that, like, after, days or weeks afterwards. And it makes you think, it makes you value, when you're with your family and with your kids, you're like, you just always have that thought in the back of your mind, like, man, that day, it could have been really bad.
Yeah, so I completely agree. Everything Buster said. It's something that you were never trained. No one ever taught you. You get taught your whole entire life by your parents and your school and elders how to think and how to take on experiences. Well, this is something that you don't know how to treat. You don't know there's no teaching. You don't know what to do. So, and how do you talk? First off, there's several steps. How do you talk to anybody about it? We finally, it felt good when we were able to finally do it on our first venue that we were able to talk to about it, and kind of people saw that, and then talking to people like you, Matt, that have experienced something like this, that helps, because most of the time you're talking about this, it's campfire stuff. People are talking about this and no one believes it. No one, and most times the people that, and I hate to say this because they could say this about us, but I believe a lot of this, there's a lot of it out there. People are just doing it. They're just doing it because, and you can kind of tell when people are talking about it, when you've been there, when you've seen it, because you know what they're going through. And then you can tell, like, people talk about, I'm like, I don't believe, I just can't, it's hard to believe that some of these things are real.
I call that cringeworthy. Yeah.
I hate thinking like that, because I don't want people to think about that like us, but I can't help that. But, and the other thing is, and how do you move forward? And so how do you move forward? It's kind of weird, because you're kind of like, this is effed up. This is kind of effed up. How do we do this? How do you talk to your kid about this? You know what? How do you go in the damn woods again? How do you go out there and not think about it again?
Another question that I actually have for both of you.
There's so many things, and it's so burdensome. And then you're like, man. Then another thing you do, and it's almost impossible when there's two other people that were with you. You almost sometimes, and Buster and I talk about this, and I'll say, there's no way. We've said this so many times. I'm like, is there any way that you could look at me and we can say that didn't happen? And what do you say, Buster?
No, it happened.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way. You can't just say, was that well, there's not a.
And I think that's what I was talking about a while ago. Yeah, we saw it and it was so terrifying, but yet there's that thing inside of us where we've been back multiple times, and going back to how we deal with it. I think that is how we're dealing with it, because we're going back, because to us, and I know this is something we both spoke about, but we want to prove that it's true. We want to prove, and we have some, we've putting up a lot of, it's kind of, we don't have a lot of time to go. Obviously, we both have families, so we have to, we have full jobs and everything like that. But when we do have, it hasn't been a lot, but whenever we are in there and we have time to go, we're back up there trying to find evidence, trying to find, something that without a shadow of a doubt proves that it's real.
So I'll say one thing. We've been gone. Well, to us, Buster and I, for us to say we don't go a lot. We may go more than most people. I mean, because we're normally, every weekend we're normally in the woods, And so sometimes during the week. And so when we don't go during the week, if we just go during the weekends, we think that's not going much. So sometimes for a while we went.
Well, it's not something we can dedicate full time.
Yeah.
How long did it take you guys to go back in the woods after this happened?
Do what now?
How long did it take you to, after this occurred, to go back?
We didn't go back for, geez, crap, probably it was 5-6 months or something. It was cold. It was after he got cold.
Yeah, it was like 6 to 8 months before we went back to that same spot.
How many of you were there? How many of you were there?
Just me and Bus. Me and Bus are the only ones that have been back.
Yeah.
Highly armed, I would assume.
Oh, always, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we
I
always go
didn't
on.
go back to my place doesn't exist anymore. They have demolished all of the old steel mills, and there's 3. I've mentioned this a lot. There's 3 businesses in that big area now. 3 different steelworks facilities. But you can, in Google Earth, you can go over that spot and in what lurks beneath my interview with Josh and the Nokia. There is a couple Google Earth overhead pictures. You can see rubble and stuff. There's nothing left. We did go back a few years later. We were in our 20s, so I mean, it was 7-8 years before we went back because we were 14. I think we went around 21, 22. There was I think 6 of us, arms, arms to the teeth. And we had measured that they had these pillars in each corner of the room, which were foundation pillars. And I touched, and this isn't about me. I just wanted to mention real quick, I looked for markers, of about the height, and the ceiling was between 8. We couldn't reach it that far with we had one of them shorter measuring tools, the tape, but 18, 20 feet high ceiling. The pillars were between 4 and 5 feet wide. So when this thing stood up with one behind it, you didn't see the pillar from the side. So it was every bit as wider. And I would say, from the tips of the ears, looking at the height of the ceiling, we figured out from at the top of those ears, it was between 11 to 12 feet, somewhere in between there, 11 and a half. So from the skull, we all agreed probably about 11 feet tall. Again, so many similarities. You guys said around 10, you thought, which is a hard thing to do, is guesstimate height. But when you have markers, it makes it a little easier.
No, that's we did. So that you say that because that was and all that kind of lines up because we were able to go back when Buster and I went back. That was the biggest thing, was that how tall was it? How big was it? So we were able to come back, and I'm like, the tree we always talk about, the branch. So we always talk about the branch. We saw, because he was behind that branch, and we're like, we saw when he stood up, he was over it, whatever, was over that branch. We measured the branch. The branch was 10 foot tall. We know it's at least 10 foot to 10.3. We know for sure, 1,000,000 trillion%, we know that's how tall it was. Nothing else is that tall. Nothing.
No. So looking at the build, so let's go real quick. Black, jet black. Was there any other markers in terms of maybe a stripe or any other lighter parts of it?
Yeah. The only part I could really see the skin was on the stomach. It was hair everywhere else, and then as it got here on the stomach, it started losing its hair, and you can see like a black, looked like a real thick, black, rough-looking, like monkey skin is the only way I can describe it. But you could see it was toned. You could see, or I could see, the definitions of muscles.
Did you see any other colors in the fur or the anywhere else? Like with me, it was as black could be. The only other color was white stripe down its back, and then when it opened its hands, right, just like in this area, it was just pale, like
yeah,
really
it was dark. Yeah, well, where we saw it, it was there's no other outside light source. It was dark and only saw,
Okay.
and we were just shining the spotlight on it.
But you think 30, 35, we know now it was, well, but it was always, the closest it got to us was probably 18 to 20 yards. The furthest it was about 35 yards. When the light was on it, it was 30 to 35 yards, and 25 to 35 yard in that range. Okay, that's where it was. Pretty close, but when it's pitch dark, you're shining a light at something when the damn light worked. When the light was able to work, and when it was on it, and there was, and it's amazing. This is incredible. It's kind of gives you chills, but it's amazing when you're staring at something for 7 seconds, and your eyes are locked on something for 7 seconds, and you're looking at it. It doesn't matter if it's 2 seconds, 1 second, 7 seconds. That is, you never forget that thing. And even if it was dark, but the light's on it, and you remember, like Buster said, and just me, I'm looking back, and when you look back, and you take that look, and then you see it, you're stunned. But yeah, it's the muscularity of the thing. It's muscular. It's big. The arms you talked about, it's so similar, which is one of the reasons we're on there with you, because of what you saw. The arms, the long arms, okay, long arms, and it was able to get on when it was down. Because when we first saw it, it was on like 4 or 5 foot tall. It appeared, and then that's when it stood up, and then just obviously when it stood up, it just,
too. Not to interrupt you, Larry.
No, please.
All fours, and it's 4 feet high. I mean, that's just in essence of itself crazy.
Huge.
Yeah. And also too, I mean, I couldn't, like I said, I could only see like different color black, but it was, because when we very first saw it, we was like in the middle, and then when the rock was flown through at us, then the wave pushed us to the other side of the bank, kind of. But when we very first saw it, you could see, because it was like, I mean, I don't know if it was, I mean, I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear like a growl, but its mouth was open, and you could see like 2, whatever they call those on dogs, canines.
Canines, the fangs,
yeah. I didn't really get I couldn't really see how long those were, but because you're just going like that, trying to see every part of it. It happens in seconds, but I do remember seeing canines on it.
Do you guys remember at all, at least make a guesstimate on the length of the hair, and then taking it a couple steps further after that? Was there a mane? Did it have a bushy tail? How did that look?
I'll tell you what I saw, what I remember, and I think we've talked about this a million times, so I think he'll probably agree. But it's just when once again, you're staring at this for 10 seconds here, 5 seconds here, 7 seconds here. I will say we all, like I think you mentioned earlier, we've talked about it a million times. I think you mentioned a while ago about the ears, the long ears, which are probably, we gathered just by measuring things. We talked about it. You know, they're like 7 to 10 inch ears, it seemed like to us, right? And another thing, so the hair, so it seemed like the hair, so it kind of dissipated, it kind of went away, kind of like just a hairy dude sometimes, but as in the chest area, it kind of went away, and its lower bottom was kind of, its lower abdomen was kind of exposed, and the hair was kind of gone from there. And we have some theories on that too, which maybe we can talk about later, but I think we got so many things we can talk about. But we think there's reasons by things we found out later from findings that we found. We believe we know why their bellies, the hair is gone from their stomach.
Well, we're on that, Larry, right now. Please.
So here, okay, well, we'll kind of talk about it now. So here's some things we believe. So from some of our findings, and we can provide some of these photos will show you, we believe these things travel, we'll call them aqueducts, Buster. I don't know what we call them. They're kind of, they travel there. They have highway. We believe they travel along highways on the riverbanks. And here's why we believe that. This has never been heard of. I don't think anybody ever talked about this, but there's no other explanation for it. So we do a lot of alligator hunting. So when alligator hunting, you hang alligators will normally get their prey, from the bank, right? So I'm trying to fix my battery here, but so Anyway, so they'll jump up and grab their prey from the bank. So when you're alligator hunting, you're able to hang a bait over the bank, and an alligator will jump up and get it. So, well, there's no alligator in this bank, but so we started kind of thinking, why is there never, we couldn't catch one. We could not get a camera. We saw this thing. We put cameras in the area, but then we noticed all kind of carnage on this riverbank. I'm like, something's killing things on this riverbank. So we hung over a raccoon. We killed a raccoon. We hunt raccoons. We hung the carcass over and hung it over the bank. And so went back, and it's on a large hook. It's hanging over on a string, hanging over the bank. And it's an 800-pound test. Okay. We had a T-post that's dug down in the ground, 2.5 foot in the bank. And we came back, and then at this particular time, the rope was broke. The rope's 800-pound test. It was completely gone. And so didn't think anything of it. We're like, something just chewed through it. So on our trip back, when we were going to, we knew the water was down. We were going to try to go back since the water was down. We're like, let's go see if we can find that rock that was thrown. And so we knew, so we can go back. The water's at least it's down 4 foot. It should be just sand there. We ought to be able to see this rock. And so as we're going through the river, where we had put that the bait hanging over, we noticed canals deep in the bank, stretched along 150, 200 yards.
Or yeah,
there's no way. Their circumference of them, they were so deep in this bank. They weren't catfish, they weren't beavers. They were 6 foot circumference around, even bigger. Something massive is going down these canals or these highways, and I just believe, I don't know. There's nothing else that explains it. And then what could have taken that bait off? The thing we hung, the raccoon we hung off that broke that 800-pound test. I believe by looking, we have pictures of them. We have a lot of pictures of these things. And then it just, there's nothing else that can make these things except a very, very, very large mammal that's traveling and using these things as a corridor. And I believe they use it as a corridor to hunt and hide.
You know, one of the other things that you and I discussed, Larry, was you had said there were some things in the show that you liked, and there were some things that they unfortunately left out. You said that, you know, there were things you were going to tell us about that happened that no one has ever heard before. Would you mind?
Well, I think a couple things Buster kind of hit on earlier.
Right.
During the show, there was a lot of growling. They showed it growling and growling. There wasn't any growling. Well, there was noises, a lot of noise, different noises, but it showed it growling the whole time and growling and growling, and it appeared to give off this feeling like this was something that was out to hurt us. It was growling and it was angry, but there was no continuous growling. I think Buster, you agree, right? There was no continuous growling. There was a very loud expulsion of air, probably 6 or 7 times, kind of like a deer does to alert other deer around. Get this loud expulsion of air, like we keep talking about. It's like you let air out of a tractor tire. It was just loud as you can imagine, and it did that. It just expelling this air, but there was no growling. So I know they do that just to kind of put that for effect, but that never happened. We never heard the growling.
And the main thing too, I didn't like how because for me, one of the most, terrifying things I thought was seeing this thing while it was jumping from bank to bank, while that's doing that, because you can hear it, hear it running on this side, jump, and then all of a sudden you hear a smash on the other side and trees are like getting ran into. You're doing that. So your spotlight, you're going back and forth. And while this is happening, I mean, you can catch glimpses of it just jumping and basically flying through the air, and they didn't put that on there. And to me, I thought that was one of the most I guess what's the word, one of the most traumatic or scariest things that affected me the most. I don't know why they didn't put that in there.
Yeah,
you don't see that. Never see. That's one thing you don't. It's I guess the word's fascinating. You never, and it's traumatic when you see it. You just don't see anything that can, with that large, be able to cover that much ground, and it's just shocking. It's just pure
Absolutely.
and that's what scares you, and that's where you're like, this is out, we're done.
I agree, and you know, I've said so many times in so many interviews, you know, that I've done on other people's shows, is you just cannot, and that's why I say I don't begrudge people that don't believe me. Does it bother you? Yeah, it does. I've been really lucky that the majority of everyone who has ever seen my interviews, I mean, we're talking in the upper 90 percentile that believe me. I've been happy. I've been contacted by psychiatrists and psychologists and human behavioral PhDs who have all said, Matt, this is my name. This is what I do. This is what my degree is. I see nothing you're saying as a lie, or that helped immensely. But you know, when you've really had something happen and you try, especially if supernatural, paranormal, those out there that, which I'm sure again you guys have learned over the decades, or not decades, but ever since this occurred, that you know, some people just, unfortunately, their minds cannot open enough to realize that this stuff has a possibility of existing.
No, no, there's not a psychologist or a doctor or I'll tell you this. There's not a I don't want to put anybody down, but there's no one trained in this world today. No, there's not anybody at Harvard, Princeton. I'd love it. Come talk to me. You're not gonna. So I mean, we still function. We still have families. We're good guys, but there's things that you struggle with, and there's nothing. Talk to a psychiatrist. Talk to this. There's not anybody. There's not anybody. The most well trained from Harvard, Princeton. Yeah, there's nobody that can sit with you and say, I can get you through this. I know how to make you feel better, not have to have dreams at night, and wake up in the middle of the night. You can't do it. You're not out there. They're not out there, and it's sad. And it's not no one's fault. It just no one's trained to do things, to talk about things that no one saw except guys like you and guys like me, and the very, very few true people out there that are saying that really saw what we saw. There's no one out there to help us get through this except you and us together, and that's it.
Agreed, and I thank you for saying that. You know, I personally reached out to my priest on my church. Did you guys ever reach out to any religious?
No.
Okay. No. Okay. Is there ever? I mean, I know the answer to this, but is there ever a day that goes by that you don't think about this?
No.
Oh yeah, you think about it every day,
No.
And then you think about like, why would is that a creature that God made? There's that's. I know we're kind of getting maybe way off subject now.
No,
that was crazy. You're like, if and I you said priest. I grew up Catholic, and I'm kind of on the is all that real or not? But sometimes I think it is, sometimes I think it's not. But then I'm like, if there's a God, why would he make something like this? I don't see how it would, like it what does it benefit I don't know. Kind of hard to explain, but why is it weird?
Everybody
brought it up, Buster. Go ahead, Larry.
No, everybody talks about this being what if it's I mean, there's humans, there's apes, there's canines, there's felines. What if there's just something out there that there's just not a lot of? And everybody says, oh, we can go to the moon, but we can't find a 10-foot ape.
Monkey. Yeah.
Well, we find new things every day.
That's a subject that we could go in some other time. We have more abilities.
Well, and here's the deal too. This is something we was talking about when we was at the Dairleys a couple weeks ago. That sound that we heard, that hissing sound, like right after because the bones was breaking, or we heard the bones crackle, and then when it was standing up, that's when we heard the hissing sound, like
Right.
air being shot out. And then you think to yourself, that's like almost mechanical, like something, because you hear something like that, you know, what's that called? A break, Jake breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
how that sounds? It was similar to that. And then, you know, of course,
Yeah.
because no one knows about these things. You watch like Finding Bigfoot or Bigfoot Expedition or whatever these deal is, and you hear somebody say, I've been studying Bigfoot for over 20 years. They eat deer and berries. And then I'm like, how do you know that though? Because you've never had a body to dissect its stomach to see what it eats. You have nothing to go by. So you know, that's what we was thinking, that sound. I mean, it's almost like, I know it's kind of far fetched, but it's like did someone make it?
That's interesting. And Larry, I'll throw this, since you were just about to try, and I'm so happy you brought that up, Buster. Thank you. I was gonna ask you guys, and again, I'll let Larry jump into this first. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, so I think me and my friends saw, and we've spoken about this, you know, there's two less of us now, but we all agreed some of the attributes that we noticed on the animal that we thought you were going to call it that, or being, well, you know, were 100% supernatural. Something different was going on. You mentioned, ironically, the same color, you know, amber, orange, yellow kind of mixture color there, and the eyes, it wasn't eye shine. It was coming from internally. So looking at it at a bigger picture, like, so do you believe the one that you guys saw, you had mentioned in the video, Buster, from hell possibly? Do you think it was possibly from hell, another dimension? Do you think possibly that the government had got their hands on one of these? Because, you know, if you listen to, I have an interview coming up in the next week with a friend and one of the more well-known, in my opinion, true dogman experiences. Joe Barger is his name. He's a truck driver from Michigan who actually killed one that tried to kill him. He was visited by some government agents or whatever division. You know, makes you think about the Men in Black. And they told him, for all intents and purposes, you know, you killed one of our assets, which was beyond interesting hearing. So, you know, what are each of your thoughts on everything I had just mentioned?
So after we did these woods are haunted, a couple weeks later, we were both like, there'd be black unmarked SUVs outside our houses, like crazy times at night, between like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I remember my wife telling me something about it. I'm like, it's probably because at the time we didn't live where we live now. We lived in a subdivision. And I'm like, it's probably just one of the neighbor's kids or one of the neighbor's friends or whatever. And she was like, no, I can see when I look out the window, it's like they know I'm looking. So he's smoking a cigarette. It's like he's letting me know that he knows I'm looking. And she was like, I'm telling you, every time I look out the window, he's smoking a cigarette. It's like to tell him, it's like for him showing me, I know you're watching me. And, you know, this would happen 2-3 times a week for like a month. I'm like, maybe it's not a coincidence. And
did you ever call the police?
I went out there one time and I got halfway and it just took off. I never called the police though. I mean, because I thought about it, but then you're like, you know, they would just say, that's what my wife told me. But I'm like, what do I say? A car's sitting outside my house, not doing it. You know what I mean?
Well, after 3 times, you could say, you know, hey, 3 nights in a row, we have somebody out there. And this is, you know, after it's occurred, obviously. But, you know, for anybody, if God forbid, you know, something negative happens, like you've had an experience like the 3 of us. But
to me, it was kind of like almost an intimidation factor of don't talk to anybody else.
And all the times it happened to him, I think we know what it is. I think I know. And when I think about this, I think I think we talk about is the government involved, and I don't want to get ourselves in any trouble or anything, but I'm not against the government or anything. But I think maybe they've been trying to find something, and I don't care if it was planted by the government. I don't believe that. I believe this is a creature, and like I told you, Matt, earlier, I don't think this thing's out here to hurt us, because I think Bus and I talked about
It could have if you wanted to.
It 1,000,000% could have. There's no reason. It was too close. That rock was big enough. I think it was just protecting what was with it, whether it be a wife, whether it be a child, an offspring, or a mate, whatever they want to call it. But I do believe wholeheartedly the government wants to have what we have. I believe they want to, whether we came upon it on accident, we're in the right place to find something. So based on the photos we have of the coyotes in the trees, the waterways, and the rock being moved, and a couple other things we have, I've never seen anybody present anything like the things that we could present if we had the right avenue to present to. But it's a very slippery slope. And I will tell you this: we did have someone approach us. Someone contacted us both and told us, be very, very, very careful what you present. You can tell your story. You can talk about your story. You can talk about what you find. Be careful with who you give it to.
Yeah.
And so there's a time and a place for it. And we have to figure out the time, because I think just not even in some things we may not need to talk about, but I don't know. But there's no way to get a coyote, I don't know how long, 35, 40 foot in the air and tall branches in the middle of nowhere. It's impossible. There's zero chance you can get a coyote up in a tree like that.
Yeah, man, Matt, that's something you see like in a horror film.
There's no equipment. There's nothing we could do you can't climb up there. There's just no.
That was placed there for sure.
No, it was one. No.
What did that do for you guys? I mean, did you immediately say something put that there?
Oh, no, when you see it, it's kind of like when you see something, you're you're walking in the woods, and if you were to see if you're walking in the woods and all of a sudden you see like a I hate to say it, like a hobo camp or something, you get kind of scared because you're like, oh, someone's here. And it kind of scares you because you're in the middle of nowhere. When you see that, because Buster was behind me a little bit and we saw it, and when I first looked at it, it's terrifying. You don't know, because once again, you've never seen anything like it in your life. You look at, because it catches your attention, because we were there in the cold. We went back when it was cold. I keep saying cold, that's called winter. We went back when it's cold, and all the leaves are gone. All the leaves are gone. And so this goes back to what you said, when you said he was throwing those dogs. Mm-hmm. So we thought, Bus always thought he placed them there to keep them away, because their jaws were open and their entrails were ripped out. Okay, and they were clean. And we thought, okay, he's doing that to keep them fresh, to keep the guts out and hide it and hang them in the trees, like humans hang deer after you kill them. You harvest them, you hang them. So, but I heard what you said about how he was throwing these dogs.
Right.
What if he killed these dogs, or what if he killed these coyotes and then he just threw them in the trees? So then I thought about that. I'm like, what if that was the case? So that kind of changed the whole way I've been thinking about this. But I still think the way they were placed, the way every one of them's jaws were the jaws were completely ripped open, and the stomachs were all ripped out, and they're all.
And just someone was whimpering, crying.
There was.
Not all of them had their stomachs.
There was one dog.
There was some. I don't know how many. One at least had the. Yeah.
And you said you did put them, the ones that were alive, out of their misery.
Oh yeah, Buster.
Yeah. I tell you, just being an animal lover, I thank you. Man.
No, we don't.
Really
we don't hunt to kill. We hunt for there's a purpose behind it. But when, like, the one that was hanging there in the tree whimpering, that's what that's what I'm talking about. I keep saying that's when we heard what you said. That's could have how he's just throwing them in the trees.
That's amazing. That now that you've told me that, I mean, there were trees around. Maybe he was meaning for it to happen, but there were so many of them. They were all I would have loved to seen at least what was going on. But that's really interesting, and again, absolutely nightmare fuel to think about that too. You know,
So our deal is how do you share these photos? I mean, how do you begin to share photos of a bleeding coyote and two disemboweled coyotes with their jaws ripped open hanging in a tree? How do you who do you you can't. It's just you don't do it, or you do.
Right.
You find a source you can do it with. Not about just what we saw, but about what it does to a human being when you when you witness something like that. And so this is, I mean, we can funny, humorous, whatever, but our buddy that was with us, it's the trauma, and we talk about it's kind of funny, whatever, but he shit his pants. It was a very traumatic thing. I mean, literally shit his pants but this is after we witnessed everything. On the way back, vomited. He had vomited. We were on the way back at a little igloo, drank 2 things of Gatorade, and vomited those up, and then literally just sitting on the back seat when the light, because we know if the light was going off. It's you see it in movies. They're in a trance. He was in a trance, and it's. I mean, we joked with him forever, and poor guy. But he literally on that flat metal bench on that boat, he shit his pants.
And
it was all that. It's your body, and people. That's why they wouldn't let us. They wouldn't let us talk about that, Mama. But it happened. It's real.
Right.
That happened. I mean,
Buster as they can. Yeah.
Buster. I mean, Buster on the way back. We're crying. Buster cried. He shit in his pants. Buster's crying. They don't talk about that because that's not interesting to people. What's interesting is seeing a dog man. They don't care about this.
Well, that's real reaction. That adds to it for me. That adds to it for the listeners, and real quick, touching on similarities between your poor friend and mine, the only one that's left. He still to this day, and the guy, everyone I'm looking, this is not clickbait. This is not, I'm trying to make this a scarier bit. He still to this day has really got major psychological problems.
Yeah.
Like I said, we didn't hear from him or speak to him for over 2 weeks after it originally happened. And him and I can't talk about it more than 5 minutes. I mean, I would say 2.5 minutes. He starts getting, hey, so what? He's trying to change the subject. He cannot discuss this thing, and it has really had a horrific impact on his life.
Oh, I understand.
Well, the deal is when you go your whole life, thinking something isn't real, and then you find out that, oh man, that is real. It just totally, your whole belief system changes. And then you're thinking, because when you think something's not real and you find out for a shadow of a doubt that it turns out it is real, then you start thinking, well, what else is out there that I don't think is real that really is?
What else is out there?
Looking on something I wanted to touch on before I forget, the famous spotlight. So you had mentioned, Larry, in one of our discussions that there actually is a cryptid museum that would like to have it. Could you let everybody know about it?
I got to give a shout out because David Bacara was the first guy that ever approached me about anything. So, well, I'll take it back. A lot of people had contacted me about stuff, but we didn't want to talk about it. So Buster and I kind of discussed it. I'm like, I would send them stuff. People want to talk to us. And so David, if you listen to this, I got you. I am getting it to you. But so David contacted, nice guy, and I looked on stuff, legit. I believe he's legit. What he's doing is awesome. And so David wanted the infamous spotlight in this thing, which is we know exactly where it's at. I know right where it's at. I know exactly the corner the storage is at, but it's back there. And I've been telling him I'm going to get it for several years now, but we will get it. I want to get it to him. But David wanted this spotlight. And so on this particular spotlight, we had bought we were going to go out there. We bought a brand new light to go to when we were going out there because we needed it because we were going way back in there. Anyway, forgot the brand new light. And so I'm like, Jesus Christ. We get the other one, redo the wires. So Buster redid the wires, and it was going on and on. It was working before we got there. It was working perfectly. But anyway, while we were doing it, the thing was going on and off, just our luck.
Bad connection.
So it was flickering on and off the whole entire damn time, just probably because we were scared and trying to figure out how to do it fast. Any other time it'd have been probably fine. But yeah, we have a light, so that light will go to David, and at his place if he still wants it. I just got to go get it. So, but that is a real light, and that light is the light that shined on that thing we saw that night. So
that's awesome, and you know what? My opinion, it should be in that museum.
It should. It should. Dave's the
yeah.
person. I'm like, I never thought about this light, but you know what? It's kind of symbolic. That
it
light,
is.
It's kind of, if you think of this in symbolic, that light shone upon that thing that no one's seen, and we would not have seen this thing if it were not for that light. And sometimes you have to have a light. A light has to go off, and there's a reason that people see things. And that faulty light, that little piece of crap light, was the reason we saw that night. And I think that light, and he was right. And I never thought a light would be that, but he's like, I want that light in my museum, and it makes so much sense to me, the symbolism of it.
You know, looking on, like, for me, the experience of having, you know, it being at night, having that giant fire, the eyes, you know, it just, everything happens for a reason, and you were meant to have that light there, just like we were meant to see it with our fire.
Yeah.
You know, looking on through the years, obviously when this occurred, we didn't need, you know, none of us had cell phones. The internet was not, you know, as full of stuff in this short amount of time since it happened with you for information on these types of beings. There's a lot more. You want to hear something really ironic? You mentioned how tons of information on Sasquatch. You know, a lot of people that have more knowledge than others. In my opinion, other than the government, who I truly believe know about these things, you know, extensively. There's no experts that are just general public people. There's more the people that know more than others. Looking on what this thing looked like from the time you were, you know, in 2018 till now, have you ever seen anything in a movie, on the internet, anything that looked as close to what you guys saw? You know, is there anything that anyone could see online that you would say, yeah? So, like for me, the Hugh Jackman, Van Helsing movie, when he turns into the black werewolf at the end, that's as close to on TV as anything I've ever seen.
I guess it's close, but to me, and we talk about it, I've never seen anything. I don't know. I think it's a lot of it's just from imagination, but I think yours, what you saw is, because I think it's real. I think it's the closest, and that it was it man-like? Yeah, it's man-like because it was muscular. But cows have muscles, but this thing was able to stand up. It had muscles, it had hair, it had ears. It resembled it resembled a dog with his face.
Long snout, yeah.
The snout, very apparent. The snout was very apparent. Obviously, it was a dog face. But,
yeah, I remember it even had the black nose like a dog.
Okay.
But as far as I believe if we were to have someone draw it, then I mean I'm kind of an artist and I can kind of sketch it out. I'm not a great artist, but if I could have someone that could draw with Buster and I said in there, if we had this thing, if we could draw it, I believe we could sit there. We could tell them, no, I've never had anybody draw how they draw the stuff.
You know,
I know for sure I can describe it. I can say, no, that wasn't it. Oh, that's it. That's it right there. I could sit with someone and they could draw this creature because we know it's etched in our minds like nothing else. It's etched
Forever. You'll never forget it. Neither one of you will.
Yeah, looked like a black wolf that had thick, dark hair on the back, like a chow, a longer snout than a dog, with the pointed ears.
Just so that you guys know, again, since you mentioned it, you mentioned you wish there was somebody. I'll send you guys, and I'll leave a link. Also for anyone else that sees this and wants to get in touch with somebody. I did an interview with Sibylla Irwin, who has the YouTube channel Sketching Encounters. And what she is a graphic artist and a graphic sketch artist. And just recently, she about a month ago released her and I's interview. We worked together for over a year. She is so incredibly, just detailed in how she does everything. She will take as long as it takes to discuss with the book, and I'll get you in touch and we can talk after the video.
I'd love to do it. I'm sure most of it.
Yeah, and my interview has as close to what you could possibly ever get, other than going back in time and taking a picture from standing around the corner. This is as close. So if you want to see my dogman of what it basically looks like, you can go to Sketching Encounters by Sibylla, Sybilla Irwin, Irwin. She is incredible and one of the most amazing human beings on the planet. She will do you guys justice, and I'm telling you, she will get it to as close to as you could ever imagine.
Yeah, I'd love
I will get you in touch with her. How did you guys ever approach your friend, even just to maybe try to have him do this? Like, what's his mindset on interview?
There's a reason I'll never talk to anyone. He died, February of last year?
Last February.
Sorry.
Year. He
my condolences.
We called him Danny, but his real name was Jason. His real name was Jason. His last name. But he's our buddy, our good buddy that died. And
I'm so sorry.
And, good guy. And but he was there. He was there with us the entire time. He never wanted to talk about it. We had some good stories around campfire, talking about what we saw and everything. But it's us two now, of course, and everybody. When we got back to camp that day, it's everybody that we were able to talk to. But no, you told me I laughed. And I said, no, he'll never talk again, and the reason why is because he's not with us anymore. I'm
so sorry about that, guys. And
died in the hospital. He had a seizure. He had a seizure at his home, and then he died in the hospital. He woke up, then had a heart attack. Thank you. And he had a heart attack in the hospital. And I went to go see him, and they let him go.
I'm so sorry.
We always wonder if all these stories, for all the years we told these, for those years we told these stories over and over, and a lot to each other and a lot to people that we trusted. I always wonder if these stories that we told and just trying to tell everybody about them, and just what did it get to them? Did it just is that what got to them? So
breaks my heart, man. I'm so sorry, and again, being someone that has lost two of the guys that were there with me. Again, and if you did mention this to me when we've been talking a while now.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about.
I apologize for that.
No, I didn't mention that he died. I just told you that he went through some problems, and we'll never be able to talk to him. But I didn't say why. But he did one good thing. He did for us. He introduced us to one of our coolest things. I don't think we talked about this yet. Have I talked about our drone stuff that we're doing? So I don't know what you heard, but so one of the good things that Jason did before we went out, Jason was getting into drones and stuff, right? And so he started to do stuff. So he introduced us to a guy, and actually this guy, I think probably and I'll say his name is okay, but his kid's name is Jason Chase Kingott. This kid has done more for us on actually has helped us so much on actually discovering new things. So we first got involved with Chase when we were out. We'd go try to hunt hogs and stuff. And so we'd go to landowners and stuff, and hogs would be on their property tearing up their fields and things like that. And we'd have problems. We'd think they're on this side of the 3,000 acres, and we'd set up and spend all this time out there, and they were 2,000 acres over, 1,000 acres over. So we got involved. So Jason introduced us to this kid, this Chase Kingott cat, and so he's like, "No, I can help you with that. I can help you find these hogs at night." And so he started finding the hogs, and I'm like, "Wait a minute." So and way where he was doing this was with, I think it's called LiDAR or whatever, but it's like this thermal stuff. So he was able to locate these hogs at night for us, and then we would be able to see deer and all this other stuff. I'm like, "Man, could you?" And we kind of brought up our experience with them. And I'm like, he's like, "Are you telling me that you want me to try to go out there and locate this thing for you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." And so he's like, "Okay." So fast forward for about 6-8 months, a year, we tried this, and then and we have this footage. So one day, so we do have something that we feel even more than the coyotes, even more than the rock photos, even more than the aqueducts we've seen in the banks. We have something that Chase found for us that we believe is it's what do you, I mean, Buster, we've talked about it a million times. What the hell else could it be? It ain't hogs, it ain't deer, it ain't cows. It ain't a small human being.
Oh no, it ran too fast to be anything of any known animal.
It knew what was, because I said, "Get down low, get down, bring that thing down, bring it down now. I want to see this right now. Get down now." And then it took off, and it is a humanly figure, and it's big, and it's running fast. And it went and it got down. It ran to. This is why we believe. This is another reason we know. Well, we believe that it travels those things. It ran to the water, did not get to the water. It disappeared, and I believe there's tunnels that it gets down there and travels that bank and escapes. And so that was just a small book. Before, I think that was Jason's little gift to us, introducing us to this guy before we lost him. So pretty cool deal. But I think that's, I can't believe we hadn't talked about it the whole time. But I think that's one of the most fascinating things we have is the LiDAR, the infrared kind of
thermal deal or whatever.
Thermal, yeah. I don't know what I think it's called LiDAR. I think it's called LiDAR.
And you know what? I was just looking up, some information about the LiDAR, and you can connect those. They use those in drones. Obviously, the bigger the drone or the bigger whatever you're using, you can do a much bigger area. And what's amazing about the LiDAR is the detail and everything. So it's
pretty detailed. It's fairly, it's fairly damn, because I'll tell you this. You can tell the difference between a hog and a deer, and it ain't a hog or a deer, I assure you. I promise you, it's not a hog or a deer. And it's a lot bigger than a man would be. So, well, I'll just put it to you like that. So that's another thing that, how do you share that stuff? Matt, who do you share with? And it's this, and I'm sure, but I think also there's other people that have stuff, and they're like, how do you share it?
I want to ask you guys this, because one of the things and bless you, Buster, by the way, one of the things that have happened to me since I started doing interviews on other people's channels first, before I started my own, the number of people that have reached out just saying thank you for having the guts to do that. Now, Buster, you're not, easy to find or anything. Your brother had to help me. But Larry, I'm sure you have been contacted, both of you, by a number of people over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, everyone gets the negative sometimes, and you just kind of got to ignore them.
Of course.
But for the people that have reached out to you in positive manners, how is that with you guys? How did that affect you?
I'll tell you, because I get them all the time. Because Buster, I think he got rid of his Facebook when all this happened, and just because of that, and I can let him talk about that. But I'll tell you, I've kept mine for a little bit. I don't get on a lot, but I do get a lot of response from people. And I'm telling you, it's kind of cool when people, because they're all, and a lot of these people are coming with experiences. A lot of people they've had the experiences, or they thought they've had experiences, and they want to know more about it, or they want to know, I saw this, or my grandfather saw this, or my mother saw this when she was a little girl, and it sounds so eerily, exactly like what you're talking about. Or we've had people, from the area. I've had, a state trooper from the area that says, "Hey, we live out there. We think we may have seen something in this area." And so it's for the most part, I would say 90% of everybody that's contacted us has, just, been very supportive, but also, most of it is, we think we may have seen something, or one of our family or something or friends have seen something like this, and they want to know more about it. And I think it's more information. And now I think it's just like nowadays, there's so much more intel and information going around in social media, and being able to converse with people across the United States and the world, for that matter. There's people from out the United States that have contacted me and says, well, we didn't see this, but we saw something similar that's kind of supernatural, if you will. And a lot of people just want to call. A lot of people I've called. I've been on the phone for hours talking to people. They just want to talk about it. They want to talk about it.
Yeah. Yes.
So, that's counseling, and that goes back to what I said earlier. There are no counselors. There's a lot of smart people in this world, but there's no one that can counsel people like me and Buster and other people that call us and want to talk about it. We're better counselors than they can ever be.
Yeah, because when they're going to their medical. Yeah, because, like when these doctors or these therapists or psychologists, psychiatrists, when they're going in their medical school and learning how to deal with, they learn how to deal with people with anxiety or some type of phobia. There's nothing in the medical books that they teach them. Okay, when someone sees a creature like this is how we do. You know what I mean?
How do you do
like what Larry was saying? There's no way to, there's no. They're not taught on that.
How did each of your, obviously you have the same parents and family members. How did your families respond to this, to you guys?
We didn't share with them a lot, honestly. They kind of saw some stuff, and I'll tell you this: we had to you kind of had to. Well, long story, but you kind of had to act like it was kind of we did something we did, because you would going to get ridiculed because of it.
Yeah, someone even posted it like, "Oh, look what they did," like it was a joke. Remember?
Oh yeah.
I don't know who it was. Like I said, I don't have Facebook. I haven't had it for a while. But going back to what you were saying, Matt, I mean, if by us telling our story, if it's helped people talk about theirs and help them, with their trauma or fear that they have, I'm glad for that.
And it's at least, at the very least, worth it. I've had 70, 80, even a 91-year-old gentleman from the UK say that he had something different happen. He was going to take it to his grave. He saw, I did an interview on Paul Sinclair's Truth Proof, which is a great show. You guys should check it out. And he's from the UK, and his partner Les, and they're awesome gentlemen. And it really opened the doors for me. Like you had mentioned, Larry, you're getting contacted by people from other countries.
All the time.
All over the world, just saying, "Hey, I appreciate you, just sharing that." So you guys have reached so many more, because it's the age of television and all that.
Yeah. Oh, I've got people. It's amazing the amount of people that I have that have contacted me that want to go where we're at, and their goal is to kill it.
See,
or kill them. And I'm like, we're not. This is not what we're doing, guys. This is not what we're doing. And so they've been on. So, and a lot of these guys, and they've told me they've searched for it for their entire life. And I'm talking about a dozen groups or more. And a dozen groups or more, or either a person, or a group of 2 or 3 more people have called me. And a lot of these people are in law enforcement. A lot of them are in law enforcement. and they have called, and their main goal is to go out there. A lot of people, there's two people with shows that want to go out there. They want to film a show, and I said, we're not filming a show. I'll glad if you want to go out, we'll go out there. And our goal is to try to find and learn more about this creature or this thing or that whatever. If we want to learn more about it, but our goal is not to kill it. We're not going to kill something. If you want, if someone wants to go out and learn about it and find out where it's at and see what we have, I'm more than willing to do that. But we're not going out there to shoot this thing.
Did they give you any other sense of other than just, let's go shoot this thing? Yeah, is that?
No, I've had guys that said they've shot them before, and and I asked them if they had any, and I said I've got stuff to share with you. Let's meet. Let's meet. I'll share what we have, and you add it. We'll sit down and have a beer or have a coffee or whatever, and we'll sit down. I'll show you what I have, and show me yours. I'll show you mine. And not one time. That's why I don't think there's not any human beings that have what we have. And I truly believe that, Matt. I swear to God, no one has it. No, because no one will do it. And all these people, right. I think they've been looking for it. And that's why I think they want to go on a wild goose hunt. They want to go shoot something because I think they want to be famous. And there's not one person has ever came and said, hey, do you think can we go so we can try to find this thing? Because here, I'll tell you this. I mean, people don't think about this small little thing, but just to go, just to get gas in the boat, just to go, just to miss a day at work. That's up there losing a day or two of work. I mean, you're whatever, not a lot of money for a lot of people, but you're losing $1,200, $2,000 between two guys going for 2 days with supplies and gas and staying out there and putting cameras out. It's a lot of money. People don't think about that. You just can't go out there and dedicate your whole life. Well, why don't you just go? If you look hard enough, you'll be able to find it. Well, how do you do that? I mean, you can go for if we could go for a damn month and a half.
Is there another area that we have not addressed? Is there anything else that you guys can think of that occurred that maybe you want to bring up about this?
God, it's when you
I know where to go from here. Okay. And that's extremely incredible, and so many connections to the three of us and things like that. I wanted to jump on one other subject in regards to, obviously, again, TV, technology, the internet, so many different types of creatures or cryptids out there. It almost makes your head spin. What are your thoughts on some of these other creatures out there? What are maybe a handful of them that the both of you would mention and say, you know what, I think this one has a strong, possibility of being out there, and just to let our listeners know what your opinions are on that?
Well, me thinking first, obviously the most obvious one is Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And the reason, I say that because, it very first became popular in like 1958, 1960. And since then, I mean, the only real footage they have is, what is it called? The Patterson-Gimlin film. But, there's, they have footprints. They have, they find bedding structures, and inside those structures, they find hairs. They send those hairs out for evaluations, and it comes back either like unknown, or sometimes it comes out like a primate or something like that. I mean, that would be the only other one that, probably has, in my opinion, the strongest chance of, being real too, just because there is lots of evidence out there, as well as, thousands and thousands of encounters. Yeah, I mean, for every, I don't know what the number is, maybe for every 100 or 200, either, a large majority of those people, some might be lying, some might be, they think they saw a Sasquatch, or they think they saw this, but in reality it was a bear walking upright or something like that. But there has to be that 1% that's, it is what they saw. it might be real then in that small instance. Other than that, I don't know. I mean, obviously, what we saw, I don't know what they call that now, a werewolf or a dogman, I think is a popular term. I don't. Besides, obviously what we, other than Bigfoot and what we saw, I couldn't. I mean, what other ones out there are people saying they see?
So, like, what are your
I always
thoughts?
wonder if it's the same thing.
Right. So
Maybe.
you have the two most popular, obviously, Sasquatch and the Dogman, which I'll mention something real quick before I give you some other picks. I have found that extremely ironic and crazy that you have some people that have had real experiences with the Sasquatch, or one of the other names for them, or Sabe. It's a more respectful term for them. A lot of American Indians use those in their storytelling. And I've gotten and found out there are some camps, either Sasquatch or Dogman, that are kind of butting heads, and I have been reached out to by a number of people who have had Sasquatch experiences who say, I never used to believe there could be a Dogman. I just thought it was silly.
Wow.
But after seeing, like my interview, or because of all the other ones, now I think that it's mind blowing to me that, okay, so you saw a Sasquatch, that something like that is capable of existing. You don't believe that there could be something else? Well, I mean, what's your mind on that?
No, it's a question that's asked all the time. And then before this ever happened, you would say, no, there's no way. We are who we are. There's nothing else. But then this makes you think so much differently, not only about our planet, but what's beyond us. This does things for your mind that you can't imagine. It stretches your imagination, like we always taught, stretch your imagination. This really does it. This stretches your imagination just by osmosis. It happens, and you start thinking about things that you've never thought before, and then so everything seems plausible or possible. It seems like, okay, there's nothing that you hear and you're like, we talk all the time, Buster and I do. I'm like, well, that might be true. I mean, even a poltergeist or a demon, or I'm like, well, I mean, what if? We would never have thought, we in our grandiose imagination, you would never have thought we would ever see what we witnessed in front of our own eyes at 30, 25 yards from us. There has to be. That ain't the only thing out there. I'm
No.
telling you that right now.
And we're getting close to the end here. I know this has been a long one.
It's all right.
Real quick for you, Buster. I'm sure you've heard of Mothman.
Mothman,
yeah. You have other things like
the one in Ohio. Was that the thing in Ohio?
You have the Loveland frogs. You have the in Ohio. You also have the grass man, which is just, in my opinion, a different term for
Probably is.
You have different areas of the world, and just in terms of America itself, where because of the regions or the type of land that you're on, or if it's more water, you get different kinds of Sasquatch. Like you have the Honey Island swamp monster down in the south, and
what's the thing in Florida called?
Ape. You have a skunk ape.
Skunk ape, yeah.
Yeah. So, but in terms of different cryptids out there, you have the chupacabra, and then you have some of these other aquatic types of beings. What is your mindset? You've already answered, you believe there obviously could be any other types of cryptids, the actual creatures. But in terms of like the bigger picture, the paranormal, supernatural, all wrapped together, what's your opinions on just ghosts themselves, or phantoms or poltergeists? And then if you could, after answering that, each of you touch on just the UFO, alien, UAP phenomenon, and then we'll start to wrap up.
So, I was kind of, for a long time, you give me a body or you give me proof. I don't think it's real. You got to show me some kind of concrete evidence. Obviously, on the dogman, I had the evidence shown to me. Now, as far as the other ones existing, I mean, yeah, I mean, like Larry was saying, it expands your mind to thinking, if this is real, then who knows what else is. I mean, the chance of Bigfoot being real, I mean, yeah, I think that is now probably. I mean, after seeing, what we saw, I could probably go on to say, yeah, I feel pretty confident that, Sasquatch, Bigfoot does exist. As far as UFOs, growing up, how we grew up, in the church and everything like that, you taught at a young age that it was just this planet. God made just this planet, and this is the only life form out there. But then as you get older and you learn more about the universe and just how big the universe is, and there's millions and billions and trillions of planets, that, are like us, probably that are in what they call a habitable zone or something that has the possibility of having life out there. I mean, I would say aliens. I mean, yeah, I think I would say aliens exist. I think that they're too far from us. If something is 500 light years away, they would have to have the technology and a machine to travel at the speed of light for 500 years. A light year is what, 6 trillion miles. So they would have to have some type of machine that bends time and space to make a wormhole to get here in a faster amount of time, which, but if they've been around, a million or 2 million years prior to us, how we believe math and physics and the universe works, maybe we're totally wrong and they're way more advanced than us just simply because they've been a species longer. But, again, it's going back to, I'm not going to say aliens are real until, I have concrete evidence or I see one. Is the probability that they are real and there are aliens, life on other planet? Yeah, I think there is, but I can't definitely say I believe it until you show me a body or I have proof of it.
And that's completely fair. And again, whenever I end shows or I'm in interviews, I try to remember every time to say, at the end of every video, every interview I do, it's up to each and every person watching to decide if you believe. It's not our job. We're not going to force you or hate you if you don't. But just try to be open-minded. And, at the end of the day, regardless, what happened to the three of us, some people are not going to have an easy time trying to grasp this.
Right.
This really occurred to the three of us each. One of us had a real event occur. You two were together, and it really opens the mind. I've always said it's a double-edged sword. Like, part of me wishes it didn't happen. Two of my friends are no longer here. Things occurred in their lives that were connected to what happened to us, and they chose to live their lives in different ways, and they're not here anymore. Mm-hmm. But I also am grateful that I have had this happen on the flip side of, I know for sure 100% that this stuff exists, and it really is you can't put it into words what it does to you. Larry, I'll let you real quick touch on what your brother just said. Sorry.
Right, no problem. And that's a good way to end it, because what Buster hit on, and we agree wholeheartedly on all, and I won't reiterate what Buster said, but what I will say is, as far as we talk about aliens and people from other, from outside of our world. You know what? Black Bus said, you have to see the body. And here's what I'll tell you: there's always people that you see spaceships and all this stuff. I'll tell you this: I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I will tell you, if they're able to come from millions and millions and millions and trillions of light years away, they're not going to show up with something that requires 15 lights hanging around the outside of it so they can see where they're going. Okay, that's not going to happen. And so I don't think, with that being said, I don't think these are things we're going to see. If they're coming that far, they have this technology, I don't think we see them. I think they have, I mean, look at the AI we have right now. Okay, let's times that times 1,000, 2,000 years. Where will we be? So if they are that many years beyond us and they've been around longer than us, they're not going to show up in spaceships. That's just something we're imagining in our minds. I believe they're beyond that. So I think that they're not going to come in body form. They're going to come down in through us, and maybe and maybe they're making us. They're showing us how we do things. But I also possibly think that there's a reason why people like you and Buster and myself are starting to see things that we're seeing. I think there's things out there, and I think they're choosing people like us to see those things. And I think people are going to start recognizing this, and it's going to happen more and more. And now we're starting to talk about it, and you kind of, and there's a lot more. You're starting to see this. There's a lot of intelligent people that are starting to see these types of things and starting to talk about it. And I think there's a reason for that. And I think that kind of coincides with maybe something out of our world that's coming to talk to us and dealing with us. You've talked about it a lot. I don't think people think about will we see other people from other planets? No, I don't think we'll see them. And there's just a lot of simple reasons for that. Is they're so far beyond us. And we talk about light years, and not only light years away, they're also light years beyond us. So they're not going to show up. They're not going to show up in a spaceship with 15, 18 lights around the outside, so it helps them navigate where they're going. They don't need that. They don't need a spaceship. They don't need lights. We have AI. There's things we can do, with, we don't need that. We already see what we're doing with artificial intelligence. I mean, right. They're thousands and trillions of years, light years, to be honest, and thousands of years of intelligence beyond us. We're not going to see them. I don't see, I mean, I think we're all smart to know that we're not going to see them, that they don't have to come in human form. Okay. We already can see how we can probably travel in the next 1,000 years without our bodies. I think we can see that, and they're not going to either. But my ending thought was, I think there's a reason why people like you, Buster, and myself are witnessing things like we're witnessing. I think things outside of our ability and our minds are allowing us to see this type of stuff more and more and more. And as we talk, and people talk about this more and more, you see nowadays there's a lot more intelligent people that are starting to tell stories. Yeah. And I think it's because things outside of us are starting to realize we need to contact people that have the ability to talk about it correctly, and then I think there's a reason for that. So I do believe that there's things out there. I don't believe we'll see them. I don't believe they're in spaceships. I don't believe they have lights. I don't believe they have bodies. I don't believe they don't need to. But I believe there's a way that they're coming down, and I believe there's a reason why. There's a lot more than just us human beings out there, and I believe we're starting to see that by the way that they're communicating with us and how we're seeing all these different things.
I love what you just said. There is a new mindset that has come out that, obviously the better technology that we have, we've heard things, unfortunately, that CERN has possibly done with the collider, that they have multiple ones all over the world. And a lot of mindsets that, like you just said, and that I'm starting to 100% jump on board of, what, very well, and could be beings in our, and I always hear people say known universe. This is an unknown universe. We know jack about our own oceans on our planet, much less the universe.
But I do
Yeah.
believe there is some intelligent life in ours. A lot of, and they are able to shorten their ability to get places with technology. But I think more so along the lines of what you talked about, Larry, and a lot more people that are scientists and very much smarter than all of us are saying that they believe that some of these beings are coming through portals from other dimensions, parallel universes.
They are.
You know, there's a lot going on. You know, I would love to have you guys on again in the future for a live stream. I think if you're willing to do that, obviously.
Oh yeah, I'd love
I
to.
just think that because I have let you know, again, I do different formats here, narrations for people's stories they send in to me. My regular format, which if you look at my first 4 or 5 videos, or up to 7, I think. That's my regular format where I have a subject I speak about, and then I have interviews. Well, one of the other formats I'm going to be having extremely soon is live stream. I know for a fact that the people that are part of this channel and others that are going to be new to it, when they see, you know, that a live stream first is getting done, but when it would have somebody like you guys, trust me when I tell you, there will be hundreds of people that are going to want to ask you questions for themselves that, you know, things that I've missed today.
Oh yeah.
So thank you for offering it, because trust me, when people see this interview, they're going to be like, oh my God, you got to have those guys on. I have this question. I have that question.
Yeah.
So again, for Planet 412 and for all of my fans, just to you guys, thank you so much. I'm sorry for keeping you guys going for so long.
Oh, you're good, man.
Worries.
You know, it's an honor to have you guys on. Want to one more time thank the Thibodaux brothers for coming and honoring Planet 412 by sharing their experience with us. You know, every time I'm here, it is beyond an honor to be able to speak with all of you, and the fact that you are here with me to, you know, hear me talk with these fine people is. It's hard for me to put into words how much I appreciate that. You know, so we are going to take off yet again from Planet 412, and trust me when I tell you, we will be back. There is so much on the line coming, things I have to edit, new videos with great subjects and different people that are going to jump up for interviews. We are also going to have more narration. So if you have experiences or stories that you would like to share with us, send it to the email that is connected with this channel. It is Planet412. You spell that out though for the email. It's Planet412@gmail.com. So PLANETFOURTWELVE@gmail.com. Please hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And if you've gotten to a point of the video where maybe you have to step away or you don't want to finish it, do us a favor as creators. Let it play and walk away. That playtime is very important to all of us. You know, every creator puts their heart and soul into things. It's very, very difficult to make stuff, content. We would just appreciate it if you would do that. And if you don't want to let those ads play, which is another thing that helps us, if you can do the non-commercial subscription, that would help us as well. If you can stand those commercials, let them play for us. We would really appreciate that. So again, thank you for being here. I'm Matt M., your captain, and we will return to Planet 412. Have a good night, everybody.